Today's a great moment. We're bringing in Bill Graham from Fresh Filters. He is by far one of the greatest industry leaders we've had in a long, long time. He does a lot of product development, does a lot of touring.
Carlos, you flatter me.
The circuit touring. He's one of my mentors in this industry. Bill, thank you for coming out and sharing
My pleasure,
some time with
man.
us.
My pleasure.
What will you be talking about today specifically? What product?
I want to show you the Fresh Carbon filter.
Okay.
You know, of course, we have a series of products in the catalog, but we'll keep it straight to the filters.
Okay.
You guys are fantastic sellers and promoters of the carbon, and have been for years. We've been distributed since 2003 and established the market of the small, long-lasting granular carbon filters at half the size, half the weight, and at this point, we're more competitive on pricing. You know, here's a filter that can do over 600 CFM of airflow for less than $200. So, you know, no need to lug around great big heavy filters anymore. And I'm probably not telling your watchers anything they don't know, because when you move around the country, you don't see the big heavy filters that much anymore. If you are a buyer or a user of, you know, a great big heavy filter, you know, do a little bit of online research, watch the rest of this video, ask your retail store about it, because this is sort of the new class of filters based on a high absorption granular carbon, and we are established the market and are going to try to, you know, keep a leading position by providing the highest quality carbon for the odor absorption we're trying to do in the garden. We have all of these
They're volatile gases.
volatile gases, all the things that we're trying to capture are smell, and we are getting the particle-based stuff too. Obviously, this is going to capture solid material as well, but we're catching aerosol and volatile oils, and so yeah, butane is perfect for that, because it works into the part of the equation that we have air moving across this at like almost 20 something feet per second, you know. So we work with a 20th of a second contact time as a standard. 750 filter, 750 fan, 1/20th of a second contact time. And we're capturing everything. First bunch of filters coming around, a lot of them came from companies in Holland, were based on a pellet of carbon that was kind of like, it was an extrusion, like pasta being made from a carbon dust, either a coal or a wood source, but it was going to have a specific density and absorption and everything else, specific properties, so you could make the exact same pellet from whatever country you were in and whatever materials you had. It was called spec carbon because it was specified to certain characteristics, which did a great job, no problem. I'm never saying that a big filter does not do the job it's supposed to, but for a 12 to 16 month filter, they are massive, and unfortunately the carbon is underused for odor absorbing. You may finish those filters and still have 82 to 87% virgin carbon in that filter, never going to touch over this.
I like to explain too that some of the older filters, the first generation ones, not only was the carbon or charcoal, you said, pelletized, but it really wasn't carbon. It could have been anything from cocoa husks to anything that was already basically burnt, like briquettes.
Any kind of carbon-based material that they can burn.
Versus the Fresh filter has always used real charcoal. It's like real dinosaur. It's mined out of the ground.
Like thousands of years old.
It's the real deal.
Yeah, and this is a good time for me to correct this stuff too. Charcoal is made from wood. You know that charcoal, as a name, is straight pyrolysis. We are an earth coal, and so we're just going to go stay with straight carbon. Here's what makes this filter special. Okay, here's where we stand. Why bother with Australian carbon? Carbon is everywhere. You know, what makes this stuff special? And I asked myself the same question before I even started to carry the filter. The Australians are stupid lucky. When they first went to make carbon filters, they were copying the big pellet filters. They used the carbon that was readily available to them. It's $1,400 Australian to get a great big can filter. They have carbon like 60 miles away out in the desert, 200-mile vein, 15 feet under the sand. Okay, so here's your first part of the story, is it's immediately available, it's very old and pure, and with no precipitation has carried minerals into it. There haven't been geological forces to crush it You know, it's not a mile down turned into a rock. It's not on the top of a mountain in West Virginia. It is soft, natural carbon, clean. And so what's wonderful is in 280 million years old, it's been activating naturally by regular sun and heat forces. But we have several more advantages, and this is where the whole thing tops off. You have we make the filter, we discover we have a superior coal. They do more research on the absorption of it to design the smaller filters. But the other pieces that really fit into it is we have an exclusive with the company that's going to refine that. So we are buying a material that's not even the primary product of the factory. They are actually refining minerals, and the carbon is used in that process and as leftovers. So we're getting it at a discount. Then we buy from the company that gets a bigger discount still because they are the biggest contractor. They screen it into the pieces for us. And again, we're the only ones who do this because we buy the most and the oldest relationship. And that and the fact that the port is only like 60 miles away from where the carbon came from. So
Nice.
it's on a boat and it's moving. That's a whole lot to add up, so that when you start going around the rest of the globe and say, okay, can I do this with something else? Can I use this with Gobi Desert carbon? Can I do this with the carbon from Chile or the Western Sahara or anything like that? You could, except there's not an industry, there's not transportation, there's not an activation point, and it's not a byproduct. So all those things count against you. Here's where it counts for you. You guys are the users. You're placing these things. We want to make you, and we have a filter that's going to last 2 to 3 years. It's very light. I'm going to lift this guy. I mean, this is
Which filter size is that?
this is an 8 by 24. It's rated 750 CFM. This is an excellent filter for 4 or even 5,000 watts worth of light, which is huge. And I mean, look, I'm going to lift it with one hand. You know, look at that. And so, if this was a big heavy pellet brand, you'd never be able to do that. It makes it easy to hang. Remember, it comes with a the highest quality pre-filter polyester, and you want to keep this clean. About every crop, if you see it start to get dirty, clean it just out of habit. We're also the company that innovated the soft, easy to use elastic bands for holding the pre-filter on. This filter works just as well if we were to be blowing air down inside of it. If you're going from room to room or building your filters inline, you can place your fan blowing air this direction, and if it needs filtration, which it often will, this filter will fit inside. We just take the extra piece of fabric and fold it to the side with a bit of paper clip.
I love that you gave us that concept, because I've been telling customers for years that though it's not maybe the best use of the filter, it still works excellent to blow in your filter if you have to, versus pulling through it. So thank you for giving us that.
Absolutely. It often turns out to be better for the filter. Incidentally, it's a good time to mention that we are manufacturing all of our filters in inline versions as well. So we'll be taking the same filter you see here, putting it into a little bigger housing. So it'll bottleneck right here. This will be solid, just thin steel with airspace and another duct collar at this end.
Wow.
So, it'll be a little bit fatter, but the purpose is now we can put it between the lights and the fans, or between the fans and the wall. It actually evens out the exchange of air through the carbon, so that you're going to get a more efficient use of the entire length of the filter. In fact, when you place it between a fan and the wall, you're getting a free silencer out of it too. But this solves a lot of the problems involved with multi-light systems, because before, the filters were only going to go on one end or the other. And on the exhaust, the only thing I want outside my window or wherever I'm exhausting is going to be a vent and a pipe blowing air. In our case, it is going to be, since we just provide the base number on the box, in this case it's 750 CFM, is choosing a fan size as close to that base number as you can. And the reason we chose that number is that is going to give us a perfect 1/2 inch water gauge resistance. That's going to be the negative pressure of the vacuum, so that you get the most even draw through the carbon surface. Okay, so first of all, let me give you guys a little information about fans and filters. In this case, this would almost always be used with an 8-inch fan, probably around 700 CFM. Perfect. And most users are going to put that fan right on the filter, on the floor if it's a scrubber, or hang it from the wall or ceiling. for any other use. But the fan is going to go right on the filter, and the air will be going this direction, correct? Now, the interesting thing about this is that for for just the way inline fans work, is most of the air being drawn through this filter is going to be coming from this part right here, right around the base of the fan.
The nearest part to the fan.
The nearest part to the fan.
The air would rather much go quicker through here than start from down here.
Not even so
Somewhere
much of
way up.
that, and that'll be secondary. But first is just, even if that fan is running in free air, a fan going this direction, is going to be drawing air from here more than it's drawing it from this
the
direction.
center,
It's funny.
right.
Yeah, it's funny. It's just sort of the way that it moves around the thing. Okay. But let me answer the question of what size fans and stuff to use. If you were doing it the other way, some users have tried to oversize a filter. This same filter is available in a 1 meter version at 1100 CFM, which is about 350 off of what the fan is. That's still okay. If, for instance, we were unlucky enough to have a 500 CFM or 550 CFM, half of the rating, 8-inch fan, that's not so good, because with a fan moving so slow, we're losing our vacuum, and so we're not getting the even pull through the carbon anymore, and the air is just taking that shortest route. So, here's the filter this tall, and again, it's going to be mostly pulling through this part and almost absent down here. So that's using a fan that's too small on a filter. Now, an easy solution for it is, first of all, buy the pieces together properly. Second of all, is say that your great-grandfather died and you inherited a filter that was bigger than the fan you own. Happens. We can simply take the filter, and you can actually just saran wrap half of the filter and ignore it for maybe 2 years of use, so that this part is doing all the job. And
Which hemisphere would you want to saran wrap? The top or the bottom?
You're going to go one and then the other. What's funny is we've tried it both ways. We really only want like maybe an inch and a half overlap up down here, just to make sure, because really the air that comes in here is going straight through the inside. But it's like the Pinko game, like that. So with a little overlap, it just sort of guarantees that, and that
You're just channeling the airflow to match the lower CFM fan.
Exactly.
So it's not pulling.
We're taking 1100, and by cutting off half the carbon, we're making it into a 550.
And then the spot that's exposed without the saran wrap, that obviously gets wrapped, and then you expose the part that's been sitting under the saran wrap because it hasn't been.
When you change one side to the other, just sort of overlap about an inch and a half of what you did the first time. Very rare, but that's good FYI, because it's good for your users to know how these things work. And of course, what we know as manufacturers. What is RC48 carbon? And RC48 comes from two places. First, RC is going to be based on the source, and the figure 48 is going to be the size of the pieces according to the screen. A 4/8 screen has 4 wires per inch by 8 wires per inch. So if you can imagine this thing now, it looks like that. That's 4/8. It's going to pass through the 4, and then there's the 8. So it's 4 on one end and 8 on the other. So that's
so that guarantees a minimum size.
Exactly.
What it does is a kind of grading.
Well, do the math. That's all inches to millimeters. It means that we're going to get everything from 3 to 6 millimeters.
Is it true
Which
that,
is great, because that gives us big airflow. So we still have big particles, even though these things are 2 inches thick right here.
Is it true that every gram of carbon has 1,000 square meters of porosity of
It has
surface area?
more than 1,000 square meters
Really?
of porosity.
Wow.
Yes. Every gram of this carbon has a surface area of 2.5 basketball courts. It's awesome. This filter, right now, I can't remember, I think this guy is about 17 pounds or something like that, okay? You can count on this filter. The carbon in this filter has the ability to absorb like a third of its original weight in odor. Now, when we calculate in the steel and the aluminum in here, it turns out to be like 20-something%. But go ahead and imagine, let's say 17 pounds, 20% of that is 3.5. So, we've got 3.5 pounds of odor absorbing over here. That's going to be freaking great.
I noticed that when we opened this up, there was very little debris in the bottom of that bag.
Exactly.
And we've known each other for years, and I remember even refurbishing carbon filters in a time where
You had fun doing that,
we
too.
were packing in. We were looking at coal miners, and
It's a dirty job.
it's a very dirty job, yes. And when you bought those filters, those first generation filters, they would leak. The carbon would produce dust out of here, and it would leak all over the place.
Yeah.
This is to be a very well retrofitted.
It is. We changed up the plant when Sunlight took the filters because, of course, the sales went up by several times. It's still dirty, as you can tell by my hands. So just from doing this, but this is so much less than you can run into, especially if you're not buying a clean carbon. That does bring up the issue of refilling and disposal and so on like that. And I'm glad to have you guys for that because one story I tell is that if you have a user who's really interested, if you were to take out these rivets and carefully empty it of its own carbon, just by refilling it, you're going to get a couple more months of life out of it. Remember, we were talking about it being mostly used here and less used there. We've redistributed it, and of course the particles have rolled one side to another, and they've all been hit from this direction. However, it's sort of a trick because your user learns real quick that the carbon doesn't fit back into the same filter it came from. What the hell? I know I just poured it out of that filter. That is kind of our secret. That's one of the tricks of filling these things is carbon repels carbon. It gets a static charge. So, we need to break that static charge, and we have some proprietary technology for it. This is also the most recyclable carbon because it's soft and granular. Same thing. You're disposing of a filter. Drill out these soft aluminum rivets. The top comes off. This filter is excellent in a flower bed, in any type of garden. Carbon is excellent in potting soil. I have put this in the soil that I then went and grew my plants in. And you're like, wow, that's really creepy because, of course, it absorbed all that odor and everything else. I'm like, yeah, but if it wasn't anything particularly nasty, first of all, it's all trapped in the carbon. Second of all, if it breaks down biologically, it can escape and possibly be taken in the plant. It was nice the first time, probably be nice again. But carbon is an excellent home for bacteria. This stuff would be in more potting soils, except that it would be the most expensive component. So it's sort of funny. We've had people call and ask, if they could buy our fresh scraps, and we've considered, being able to put some fresh branding on bags, but we have so little waste that even if we were to ship our containers to a soil maker, they would probably only be able to make like a couple of semi-loads of soil with a special label, and would be done for a couple of years.
This is recyclable, basically.
Recyclable, yeah. Soft aluminum for recycling, steel for recycling, and the carbon can go wherever you want. Just scatter it in the yard, shing, gone, like that. You wouldn't want to do that. I've done that with the pellets before. Then you run over them with the mower, and it turns into a machine gun.
That's right. I get a call all the time from people saying, customers say, "Hey, Carlos, what makes a filter last long? How long will a filter last?" And that's one of our pet peeve questions, is because you got to determine several factors. One would be how much airflow you're going through, and how dirty that airflow is. And there's a third factor that people don't consider is humidity. Tell us why humidity is a carbon killer.
Oh, you got it. It's not a carbon killer, but it is going to get in the way. First of all, the filter is built to absorb a certain amount of anything, up to so many pounds. In the case of most grow rooms, we're considering that's going to be everything that's coming from the plants, and to a lesser degree, stuff coming out of the soil, composting, everything like that. I mean, everything you spray that becomes an aerosol, or dissolves into the air, is going to be captured in this filter. Humidity plays an effect, which is why we want to run it below 70 or at least 80%. Moisture coats the carbon, so it is adsorbed. All of this, when we're talking about absorb, we're actually talking about adsorbing, meaning it's going to stick, because we can chase it away too. That's why carbon can be activated. Activating just means whatever was stuck here, we got it so hot that it went away. Moisture is nice because it'll actually, if it's a high humidity, it'll get in here, it'll cover the carbon. Odor could start to slip by, but your carbon filter is always going to reflect the humidity of the room with a little lag time. So if maybe you just spilled something, you cleaned it up, you've got the high humidity for a little while, and as it drops, the carbon humidity is going to go down also. But that's what water is doing, is it's masking the carbon capture sites.
Okay.
So, but it goes away. What's kind of cool, you lower the humidity of the room, and it goes down. One of those places we never have that problem, air-cooled systems. Put a filter on those with a high temperature, and it gets better. Here's the second question, but just getting ahead of you. I just got the other day, temperature and odor absorbing. high temperature can help odors slip by the carbon, because this is all built on energy. You know, your odor and this carbon are happier together because they both meet a lower energy state. Okay, that's why that's why we have the bonding we have. And of course, temperature is all energy. So it just simply means that now your odor coming in here is carrying a little more energy with it, which makes it hard to slow it down and capture, like a spaz kid, you know, trying to get them to sit down on the bus. We put it all right here. When you're buying the product, you'll recognize the black box, you know, our claims. Sunlight Supply is our exclusive distributor in the United States. I was the original distributor, but the Sunlight Supply Company is excellent at being able to get it around the country with 10 distribution centers. So there's always going to be a filter within a day of wherever you're buying it. And of course, you want to buy that from monstergarden.com.